Hey everybody, Brian Zane here with my review of NXT Takeover, the end of the beginning of the end. I was getting kind of confused about the tagline there. Either way, this is my very first Takeover review, which is fitting since there were a lot of firsts at this Takeover show. So let's get right down to it. Opening match, the Perfect 10 Ty Dillinger going against Andrade, Cien, Almas, formerly known as La Sombra. I have to admit, this is my bad here. I don't know too much about either of these guys. Really, the extent of my knowledge about Ty Dillinger is he played Stan in that one skit with DX several years ago. So that's about all I know about either of these guys. But after seeing this match, it makes me want to see a lot more of them. I think this is a very fun, fast-paced match that's very befitting, very typical of an NXT Takeover show opener. And this match really kind of fit it's almost to the detriment now. The NXT TakeOver shows had this very familiar formula where the first or second match includes a guy who's just debuting and he gets all his stuff in, gets all his spots in, and he wins. That seems to be the case what we've seen with a lot of guys, especially in the last year or so in these takeover shows. But really it was a fun match where everyone got their spots in. I liked Dillinger's super kick to Almas, who was upside down doing the headstand thing in the corner. That was a really fun spot, and the finish was really devastating looking. My one thing I noticed about this is that Corey Graves said on commentary at one point about Dillinger was that he was one major win away from really being a contender in NXT, which sounds eerily reminiscent of how they used to describe Tyler Breeze before he got called up to the main roster when he was in NXT. So make of that what you will. Anyway, I thought this was a very fun opening match. Tag team titles on the line as American Alpha defends against the Revival in a rematch from their match at TakeOver Dallas. Would this match equal that of what they had in Dallas? In my opinion, I think it was a very nice compliment to that feud. I think it was a great match overall, but I think Dallas just has that edge because it was the bigger venue and the hotter crowd, and I think the emotion behind it was much better. In my opinion, I think champions, faces chasing champions and ultimately winning, to me is a much more satisfying match than a heel team winning the belt back, which is what happened here. And this makes Revival, as far as I know, the only, they mentioned it's the only two-time NXT champions, which is amazing how rarely it happens when NXT wrestlers win a championship more than once. To my knowledge, the only other person who have done that was Neville. He's a two-time NXT tag team champion, but with two different partners. Other than that, though, very few times, if ever, do you see repeat champions in NXT. So the Revival are now the winningest tag team just by default, by virtue of winning the tag titles more than once. All four guys make it look so easy. The one thing I have to say, and this either, this is kind of a nitpick, but it's either a good thing or a bad thing depending on your perspective, is that literally every spot in this match was a double team. Like either one team was doing a double team or the other team was doing a double team, or both teams, all four guys were already doing something. There was very little one-on-one or two-on-one interactions from what I could notice. I think it was all very tag team oriented, which is great because these guys are staying creative through the whole match and doing a really cool, really neat double team spots and four guy spots. But I think, what can make a tag team match also good is when there is that two-on-one struggle. And I didn't see a lot of that with this match. American Alpha, I wouldn't be surprised if they got called up to the main roster very soon. I saw Adam Pacitti tweet, actually, that he was expecting them to go to the live SmackDown when they debuted. That could very well happen. But first, I guess they're going to be going against, I didn't know who these two guys were who jumped them. I had to look it up afterward. They're the Authors of Pain. I still don't know who their names are. That's the name of the team. So I was very surprised to see these guys. More surprised when I saw Paul Ellering show up, former manager of the Legion of Doom, the Road Warriors. So that was a really cool thing. Very nice surprise to see someone as legendary as Ellering do this thing with NXT. But I just hope they don't make him say he's Mr. .com. He doesn't say, it is the era of the web. It is the era of the AOP. Austin Aries taking on Shinsuke Nakamura in what they called a dream match, and for once the billing actually fit the excitement and the hype around it. I have to say, the hype around this match rivaled that, if not exceeded that, of the main event later in the night. That's how big a match this was on paper, and I think the guys really delivered. It was a great match. I'm not going to go into too much detail about it because it'd be kind of silly to go blow for blow about it. I did like the finish. I liked the whole Death Valley Driver onto the apron thing. Very reminiscent of Ospreay Ricochet from a few weeks back that we talked about. My one nitpick about this match is I can count on one hand the number of times Shinsuke sold the leg that Aries was attacking, and this is what you would do with that one hand. 0. That's how often he actually sold the leg. One other thing I have, this is just kind of an observation, nothing to do with the match itself, but the fact that Aries is billed as the greatest man who ever lived, I think there's just so many people in all of WWE now, like past and recent past and present, like CM Punk and Chris Jericho and the Revival and Austin Aries, all these people who are billed in some form or some variable of the greatest or the best at something. And I just think it gets to the point where if you keep using that nickname with too many people, it really, doesn't make it so special anymore. Shinsuke is the king of strong style. You have the kings and the best and the greatest. Like, how many times can you really use that phrase before it kind of loses its meaning? I think it really behooves these guys to try and find something different to say as part of their gimmick or their catchphrase. Women's Championship, Asuka defending against Nia Jax. Now, with the last few women's title defenses we've been seeing on TakeOver shows, primarily between the 4 horsewomen, I think what you saw there was a very clear style, very technical stuff with a couple of strong hits here and there. But this is the first title match that I can recall that looked so hard-hitting between two very complementary styles. Nia Jax, the best way I could describe her, is kind of a hoss kind of character, kind of like what Awesome Kong is, that sort of thing. And then, of course, there's Asuka, who's a very good striker and all that stuff, and she's amazing. So these two styles did very well. I have to say, there was no clashing. The styles meshed very well. Everything looked very snug and just rough looking, to the point almost where things looked a little unsafe, like when Nia Jax tossed Asuka halfway across the ring. That looked a little scary at first, but I think overall it was just a really fun, competitive match. The one nitpick I have, and again, very few nitpicks with these matches that I was watching. The one thing I didn't like was in the finish when Nia Jax was getting chopped down, and then just before she got kicked down and given the 1, 2, 3, she just screamed at Asuka. Like, if you had the energy to scream at her, why didn't you just get up and do something instead? The screaming thing, I get you're supposed to be tough, like you're the monster fighting back and everything, but it didn't mean anything when Asuka just kicked you again and knocked you out and got the win that way. I thought that was kind of a bit of wasted motion there. Little backstage interview before the main event happened in which William Regal was being interviewed, and then in the background walked past Bobby Roode. This is the second TakeOver show where Bobby Roode actually made an appearance like he did in the crowd in Dallas. I'm very curious to see what will happen with this storyline. Main event time. For the first time in a steel cage, the NXT Championship was on the line as Samoa Joe defended against Finn Balor. Again, I'm not going to say too much about this match because all in all, it was a really great match. That's all I really have to say about it. I did like the sling blade from the top. I liked the spot where Samoa Joe got knocked out and flopped into the ropes, and then Finn dropped and crotched himself on the top. That was a really cool little spot there. Oh my God, the muscle buster from the second turnbuckle. Holy crap, that was a huge spot. I did not expect that. Didn't see that coming. So, I mean, overall, it was a great match. Nothing really too flashy, just a lot of hard hits. That's really good stuff, in my opinion. A really great way to end the feud they've been having for months now. It's very symbolic. The show's called The End, and this was the end of the feud, and I think it was a great way to end it. A great exclamation point. One other thing I'll say, I loved the camera work and the choreography involved with Finn Balor's entrance this time, him kind of peering over the apron and the cameras right on from across. Loved that, and the stuff with the cage while he knocked down. Brilliant stuff. I love the camera work. Every once in a while they'll do really cool camera work stuff with the entrances, and that stuff, I pop for that almost more than the wrestling sometimes. I almost expected Samoa Joe to do something dastardly to Finn at the end, because the way they're kind of hanging on that with the medical staff, I expected something more of it, and then somebody else would come down and try and make the save, some new debuting person or something, but was not to be. But it was still a really fun match, really cool match overall. I'm going to give NXT Takeover the end ... of the beginning a solid A grade here. I mean, it's a shorter show than your typical WWE pay-per-view. You get a lot more bang for your buck. It's a lot more action, so the wrestling has to be better in that kind of environment, and it definitely was. I mean, this, again, another great example of just how NXT right now, in terms of wrestling and in terms of basic storytelling, is really the superior product. Was it the greatest TakeOver special of all time? No, I have to give that to probably Brooklyn and Dallas, probably as a toss-up between the two. Probably Brooklyn would be my favorite of all time TakeOver shows. But there you have it, a solid A grade from me. Let me know what you thought of TakeOver in the comments section below. Be sure to thumbs up this video if you like it, subscribe to Wrestling with Regret, and buy the t-shirts at ProWrestlingTees.com. I'm Brian Zane, and I'll see you next time.